Yes, you can hear me. If I have the mic on, if I have the mic on mute, that's going to make it very tough for me to say good morning to everybody and welcome on in. So let me say it again. Good morning. Welcome on in, everybody on YouTube. That's a rough start. X, Facebook, X, Rumble, wherever you're on. Yes, I'm sure it's much better when I have the mic unmuted. I'm sure. Oh, God. I should have made another cup of coffee before I started, is what I just said. Now there's sound. Yes. Now it's working. Yes, of course. I have a little mute button over here to my right, and when you leave it on, it's going to be hard for you guys to hear me. So hope you're having a good morning. Hope you had a good night. Good morning. Welcome on in. YouTube, Facebook, X, wherever you're watching. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. Smash the like button. Hit the thumbs up, whatever platform you're on, whatever they have. Always helps us grow the numbers. So we appreciate when you do that. How's everybody doing here? Big D making us read his lips. Yes, well, Big D's half asleep still, so. Good morning, Susan J. Sullivan on Facebook. How are you? Nice to see you. Hope everybody's well. Dave on X, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Cautiously optimistic on YouTube. Good morning. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Now, Carolyn Miller on Facebook says still no audio. How's that possible? No, that's not possible. I know that. Phil Coe on X, first cup of Joe. I just finished my first. I should have made a second before I started. But glad everybody's in. Let's get right to it. Markets low red this morning. Dow futures down slightly, just 28. S&P down 275. NASDAQ down 23. Oil down to $70.28 28 cents a barrel. Ten-year Treasury 3.762, up a little bit. Dow and the S&P, of course, hit records highs yesterday. Southwest Airlines to cut service and staffing in Atlanta / costs, headline today. I didn't see anything else that really jumped out at me over here on CNBC about what's going on. FTX, Caroline Ellison, sentenced to 2 years in prison, ordered to forfeit $11 billion. I saw a report that P. Diddy and the main guy from FTX there, whatever his name is possibly sharing a cell together, which is mortgage refinance boom takes hold as weekly demand surges 20%. Applications to refinance a home surged 20% last week compared to the previous week. This as the average contract interest rate for 30-year fixed-rate mortgages with conforming loan balances, 766 or less, decreased to 6.13 from 6.15. The refinance share of applications rose to 55.7%. Well, you know, and the underlying bad news about this, because if you've been in your home for a while, or if you got into your home at the right time, your mortgage is probably less than 6.13, 6.15. But they frame this to look like good information. But the problem is most people who are doing this are probably doing it because they have to access cash because they can't survive in this economy. That's unfortunately the headline that they won't print. That I would bet, and this is just pure speculation, but I would bet that most people looking to refinance a mortgage to the neighborhood of 6% are not doing it because they have a mortgage right now that's currently higher than that, because we haven't seen mortgage rates this high in a long time. Yes, back when I was a kid, this may have looked low, 6%. I'm sure some of you watching, and if you're younger, talk to your parents, I'm sure they had mortgages higher than that. But we haven't seen that in a while. And people who are looking to refinance into the sixes, I would bet most of them are doing it because they're forced to do it because they need to get cash out of their house. So this probably, on the surface, looks like good news that demand is picking up, but unfortunately, it's probably not. because most people are trying to survive. That would just be my pure guess. Moon Pie says I paid 10% in 1979. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, Sam Bankman-Fried. Thank you for the name, Stephen. I'm sure. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure there's people who have had mortgages higher than that. But if you go back even just into 2020, 2019, 18 during the Trump years, there's people that have mortgages in the high twos, 3. Brian says, glad I paid my mortgage off, and now I just pay rent to the government. I believe they call it a tax. Amy says, cereal is ridiculous now. Well, I mean, there's not much that's not ridiculous, cereal being one of them. There you go. Ours is under 2%. Congratulations. Looks like free money at this point compared to where things are. Damon, what do you think about the Trump stock? Well, why don't we go take a look at that? There's your year-to-date chart. High of 71.93, it looks like, back in March. Currently sitting at 12.79. It has not been a good run. Trump Media and Technology Group up a little bit after hours. We'll see where it opens here in about 15 minutes. But it has not been good. Market cap of 2.56 billion, shares outstanding 200 million. 52-week high 79.38. 52-week low 11.75. About where we are now. It just hit the low on September 24th, so literally yesterday. Literally hit the low yesterday. Well, and here's part of your problem is, I guess, insiders or whoever had a lockup period, I guess, from when they went public. I don't know all the details of how they went public, if they went through a traditional S1 or if they rolled this into a reverse merger shell. I don't know what they did, but obviously there was a lot of stock that was locked up, and obviously some of that has now freed up. And you've got people just dumping. Yeah, insiders got the green light to start selling their stake, if you see there. And I mean, listen, that's not a great sign when insiders are selling, and again, depending on the situation, who they are, what the situation is. Are they dumping because they don't believe in the thing? Are they dumping because they have so much and they want to take something off the table? I mean, it could be different. Obviously, it could be different reasons. But and I don't know about Trump himself, if he's been selling. Obviously, that's never a great sign. Is when the leader starts selling on the inside. When you see a Tim Cook selling Apple. Now, certainly some of them have planned sales and they have to sell because they have whatever. There's obviously, again, every situation's a little different. But other than insider selling, I don't know what to make of it. To get back to your question. But obviously here it says trading volume has accelerated significantly as the lockup has lifted. More than 14 million shares changed hands on Thursday. Yeah, I mean, listen, the chart listen, when it comes to this stuff, show me the chart and I'll tell you the news. The charts speak for themselves. They always do. So you have stock that's becoming free, and insiders who are holding that have been dumping it. Whatever their reasoning is their reasoning, but Trump Media and Technology Group is a social media and technology focused company. The company's social media platform, Truth Social, provides an outlet. Right. So I guess what they hold inside this corp, I guess, is just Truth Social right now. Subscription-based video streaming service. I don't know if that's even, is that available? Subscription-based video streaming service. I looked into streaming to Truth for 6B and for what we're doing here in the morning, and contacted someone there and said it's not available yet. I mean, Rav streams there because I guess they have like a first movers, but it's the way they're doing it is not set up for public channels to stream to Truth. Like, we asked about it and they turned us down. And the way Rav has to do it is some cockamamie way that they're basically just running one continuous stream. That's the only way they can do it. Like, if Rav wanted to stream certain things to their Truth Social, they couldn't do that. Like, that's what I would want to do. Obviously, stream this, stream the night show. Can't do it. So I don't even know if they have a subscription-based video streaming service. And they say they intend to include access to non-woke entertainment, news, documentaries, podcasts, and more. I have no idea when any of that's going to start. You know, listen, you go public for really only one of two reasons, because everything else is just nothing but headaches when you go public. You go public because you're either trying to raise money or you want to use your stock as a weapon to overtake, buy other companies, do transactions, then you want to use your stock as a weapon. Other than that, there's literally no reason to go public. Unless you're, again, unless there's if that's the ultimate exit plan, then that's fine too, I guess. You can, if you're exiting, founders have held it tight for years, and on an exit, that's a good way to get out. But other than that, it just comes along, all of a sudden you have to have an SEC lawyer, an SEC auditor, an SEC this, an SEC that. I mean, it's just absolutely, all your costs go up 5-6 times. There's just nothing there's nothing beneficial about doing it. Again, unless you're raising money or you want to acquire other companies and you want to use your stock as a weapon. That's about the only two reasons. So there you go. That's Trump Media and Technology Group. Not good. See what the rest of the I mean, if you want to look, we could look at it. Let's just look quickly. Let's just look quickly. I mean, here's your chart. This is your weekly chart. I mean, it's below all moving averages. It's below the bull market support band. I mean, being frank, that's as ugly as a chart as you'll see. As ugly as a chart as you'll see right there. Every one of these red candles represents a week. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Out of the last 11 weeks, from here down to here, you've only had 2 slightly green weeks. slightly green weeks. I mean, 2 out of 11, not good. I mean, an investor wouldn't even think about looking at this until it gets back above, at least it gets back above there. Wouldn't even think about it until it gets above that. So it's got some work to do. It certainly has some work to do. All right, let's get on to a couple other things. This came out around 12:45 last night, and President Trump actually truthed the following. Speaking of Truth Social, I was actually on there. He said, "Big threats on my life by Iran. The entire U.S. military is watching and waiting. Moves were already made by Iran that didn't work out, but they will try again. Not a good situation for anyone. I am surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than I have ever seen before. Thank you to Congress for unanimously approving far more money to the Secret Service. 0 no votes, strictly bipartisan. Nice to see Republicans and Democrats get together on something. An attack on a former president is a death wish for the attacker." That was from President Trump at 12:34 a.m. John Solomon this morning in Just the News. Intelligence officials have identified that these continued and coordinated attacks have heightened in the past few months, the campaign communication director said. Matt Gaetz talked about 5 assassination teams that he was made aware of from a whistleblower. I saw Richard Blumenthal on NBC talking about how the initial, Billy Bob on YouTube, what's going on? How the initial threat from Iran had never even been communicated, leading into Butler and to other things in these last couple months. That the threat from Iran on Trump's life had never even been communicated to the proper authorities. Secret Service didn't even know about it, I guess. I'll try to find that clip of Blumenthal. But to John Solomon's piece here, the Trump campaign announced on Tuesday night, well, as I just showed you, it was the president himself at 12:34 in the morning. President Trump was briefed earlier today by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence regarding real and specific threats from Iran to assassinate him in an effort to destabilize and sow chaos in the U.S., Trump campaign communications director Stephen Chung stated. Intelligence officials have identified that these continued and coordinated attacks have heightened in the past few months, and law enforcement officials across all agencies are working to ensure President Trump is protected and the election is free from interference. The information comes on the same day that Ryan Wesley Routh was charged with attempted assassination. The man allegedly targeted Trump on a Florida golf course. Though no shots were fired, Trump was also shot at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania earlier in the summer. The release also comes from Iranian hackers targeted Trump's campaign emails, stole the information, tried to leak it to the U.S. media. They also tried to share the information with the Biden and Harris campaigns. The new threats are an escalation from the hacks, which the intelligence community previously claimed were an effort to sow division and interfere in the U.S. presidential election. The warning also comes on the same day that Iranian President Masoud Yabadabadou appeared in front of the UN General Assembly in New York. As did our, I guess, acting or former or whatever President Joe Biden, who I did not watch his speech. But Michael Goodwin has a piece today in the New York Post basically saying that at this point, it's unequivocal that Biden is the single worst president we've ever had. Jimmy Carter's off the hook. And his speech at the UN confirms that as he leaves the world ablaze, the two of them. So we'll get to that if we. Let me see if I can find the Blumenthal piece. Let me see if I can find this. Okay, here it is.
In this case, the Iranian threat was never communicated to the relevant people. Thomas Crook was not in any way tied to Iran. We can dispel those conspiracy theories. There was no finding in our report about that kind of threat underlying Crook's actions here. But in this case, the Iranian threat was never communicated to the relevant people. Thomas Crook was.
The Iranian threat was never communicated. I mean, how? How is that possible? The Iranian threat was never communicated to the relevant people. Most importantly, maybe the former president. Was he communicated to? I wonder how far into this he found out. Now, going along with that is, of course, now this headline. And how convenient as we head into the last 40 days of the campaign that the message now to the campaign is, well, I don't know, you better slow down your campaigning. You better really think about what, because we may not be able to protect you, which is exactly what the Secret Service, according to a whistleblower, told the Trump campaign, that it could not secure a potential rally in Wisconsin. Just as Wisconsin is deciding not to do winner take all. How convenient all of this is. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, as most of you know. But it just seems, interesting that 40 days out, all of a sudden now, things have revved up to the point where we can't protect you. So you might not want to do some of these rallies. And oh, by the way, there's some other things going on in this state that are not to your benefit either. Secret Service allegedly told Trump's team that it did not have sufficient assets to secure a rally. So, what's the difference between now and 2016? What is the difference between now and 2016? When you think about 2016 rallies, you think about crowd size, think about 2020 rallies, crowd size. What has changed to now this is the answer he's getting? Are we supposed to read into this that there is some level of threat that a foreign enemy could make that the U.S. cannot cope with? For him to say, well, this is just to the point where we can't handle it? They never said that in 2016, at least that we were made aware of. I don't believe they ever said that to him in 2020 that we were made aware of. But in 2024, there's a level of threat and a level of protection that the Secret Service cannot accommodate the leading candidate for president on the Republican side to do a rally outside with the threat level where it's at. They've reached a point where they say, well, this one we just physically can't do it. Does that seem strange to anybody? What message does that send? What message does that send to other wannabe lunatics out there and other foreign enemies that, yeah, well, there is a part where we're going to not be, there is a point where your threats are going to be effective in shutting this down. Whistleblower alleged that the Secret Service, quote, effectively forced the Trump campaign to cancel an upcoming event in Wisconsin. Other whistleblowers with knowledge of Secret Service planning protocols allege that failure to provide protection for a major public event is highly unusual and that a sitting president would never be denied resources in this way. So they're saying, I mean, I guess I got to be clear then. So are they saying they can't do it because they're not willing to put the resources necessary into protecting him? Or are they saying, even if we throw everything at the kitchen sink here, we don't feel like we can protect you? I guess which one is it? If the whistleblower's allegations are true, Mr. Hawley said it contradicts comments Mr. Rowe made in a press conference saying Mr. Trump is getting everything that the current president has with respect to Secret Service assets. Okay, so maybe I'm reading this wrong. Maybe this is more of, they're not saying they can't protect you. They're just saying they're not willing to. I don't know that that's any better, by the way. I don't know that that's any better at all. But either one is terrible. That same night, Secret Service secured a rally for Vice President Kamala Harris in Madison, Wisconsin, Mr. Hawley said, pointing out the apparent double standard may be influencing the presidential election. Has the Secret Service ever told President Biden or Vice President Harris that the agency could not secure a campaign event of their choosing? I mean, it's unfathomable to me that the Secret Service could look at an event and say, well, no, I don't think we have the, we can't promise you that you're going to be safe, sir. This one's just reached our limit. The threat level's too much for us. We don't have the I mean, that's just unfathomable to me that that could be the case. That a foreign enemy could threaten the former president to a point that the Secret Service throws their hands up and says, yep, this is too much for us, which leaves you only with the idea that they're just not willing to do it. They're not willing to do what they have to do to allow him to be able to do these events. And this, of course, comes on the heels of this report being out that we just watched Senator Blumenthal talk about. I haven't read the full report on all of the agency failures that led to Butler. And, of course, the most logical question is, how is he going back to Butler in October, on October 5th or whatever it is, if they can't secure the deal in Wisconsin? How is he supposed to feel secure that they're securing it in Butler? Or any place else he's scheduled to be. I mean, this is the home stretch. This is where you start to have now 2 or 3 things a day. I mean, the Trump campaign is supposed to feel secure in the fact that when we're doing 2, 3 things a day, and maybe their time to do their pre-planning and is maybe shorter than usual, because now it's like, boom, okay, every day, okay, now we're going to do this. Hey, we're going to throw an extra one in. Hey, we're going to go, we think we got to go spend some time more in Pennsylvania, or we got to go to, and they don't have their normal lead time to do what they would normally do. He's supposed to feel secure in doing all this when they can't secure a place in Wisconsin? I mean, it's not like he's like, hey, I want to go down to the border and do a rally. It's not like he wants to go into Philadelphia and do a rally. I mean, he's talking about going to Wisconsin. We can't secure a place in Wisconsin with enough lead, or we're not willing to do. There's a big difference. Maybe it's time maybe we got to reach out to Senator Hawley's office, see if we can get him on the show and see what his take on this is. All right, let's see what's going on over here.
There were counter sniper teams that took out that killer. These counter sniper teams were on Trump duty for the first time on this campaign.
Oh,
and there's a report about this Pakistani arrested the day before, now reports about the threat from Iran. What more do we know about this, and why don't we know more, Selena?
That's the big question. Why don't we know more? It appears as though this was an institutional failure, to Paul's point, all the way down. And when you have people guarding the president, you want seasoned people who have intuition, who have instincts, who understand risk and assess it, because that's what they constantly do. And to put someone there who doesn't have those instincts, who hasn't, sort of been in the trenches for a while, they don't always know exactly what to look for. And that seems to be the case, what happened in Butler. And to Paul's point about not the local law enforcement not being briefed, I was there that day. They kept us in a holding area for well over an hour. Everyone was gone by the time that we got out of the holding areas. It was several journalists and myself and my daughter and my son-in-law. And the police were the state police, the local police were just standing around, sort of looking at each other and waiting. And it remained that way. I mean, I visually saw it for hours. They were waiting for people to talk to them, and that never happened.
Paul, you talk about institutional and organizational failure, but this institution, people are relying on them for their safety.
There's a report out today that said, and this is the one thing we talked about after this happened, is how possibly does he get out of the car and get on that stage? And there's a report out this morning, and I'm sure we're going to continue to get, that they knew 27 minutes before Trump took the stage that they may have a problem out there. 27 minutes. We need to know who went to that car or wherever he was stationed and said, okay, sir, you're good to go. Or however the hell all that works. Who is the person or persons who decided it was good to go? Had they heard absolutely nothing from any authority on the ground to say, hey, wait, you got to give us 10 minutes? Nobody communicated to them whatsoever on that day that hold up. They never heard boo about anything going on. It was just another day, another rally. Okay, it's time. Send them. That's how it went down. Meanwhile, for almost a half an hour, they knew that they have a possible problem on their hands and they need to neutralize it, and they hadn't neutralized it up to then. I mean, really crazy. No single person was in charge, according to the report. Yeah. All right, let's see what other... Oh, too far. Too far, too far.
Billion-dollar market cap companies out there is Visa.
For sure. And, there is an argument that there are certain businesses that will naturally
DOJ
tend
accuses
toward,
Visa of debit network
concentration, if not
monopoly that affects
And,
price of
arguably
nearly
this
everything.
is one of them. Building a network, having all the relationships with every bank, being able to, instantly credential any transaction, all that stuff. You couldn't build it today very easily. And that's why they constantly have pricing power, and they just take a little piece, a little more every year.
What's interesting about that catches my attention is because one of the things I've been thinking about, talking to some people about, is coming up with a debit card and a mobile wallet for people who want to opt out of the woke left everything when it comes to your money. A mobile wallet that you could control, get services through, get micro loans through, that would deal directly with merchants and bypass Visa, MasterCard in some cases where you could make it happen. does everybody think about that? Would you put that on your phone? Would you download it? Would you download a mobile wallet on your phone from the App Store that you could link your bank account to, that you would have this debit card linked to? You could do other things on the app. Moon Pie says no. Amy says never. Bubbles says no. Nope, not a chance in hell. Too risky. Doesn't one of the big and rich guys have that? Well, they have a bank called Old Glory Bank. It would be the same idea. Okay, a lot of yeses too. So people would rather deal with Visa, MasterCard. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Buy Visa on the dip. I don't do any banking online. Really? I'd only do it if everyone in LFSXB endorsed it, including Harry. Well, he'd have to get off the couch to endorse it. All right, let's see. What else? Let's see what else is going on the lunatics. Whoa, what's going on there? No picture. No picture. Commercial. Oh, we talked about this.
Tuesday. Yeah, the president's still saying he will refuse to act while the acting labor secretary is in touch with the unions. The White House trying to keep the Biden-Harris administration proverbial head down in the potential port strike because it's a lose-lose situation for them. The president and vice president must support the unions for their votes. However, allowing the strike to happen could damage the economy in October, a time when the vice president could lose other votes.
One more, if I might. October 1st, if the dock workers
there's no chance they're letting this happen. I don't care what they say. That would be political. I mean, I hope they do. I mean, I don't hope they do because I don't want this to happen. Politically, for what would happen to them, I hope they do.
Now, again, this morning, White House telling me no, they will not invoke that. One common theme, Stu, when you talk to union members is that the price of everything has grown so high they can't afford their lifestyle, which is the reason they need more money from these companies. Stu?
Understood. Thank you, Edward. Yeah. Trump revealed his plan to bring manufacturers back to America. Watch this.
Here is the deal that I will be offering to every major company and manufacturer on earth. I will give you the lowest taxes, the lowest energy costs, the lowest regulatory burden, and free access to the best and biggest market on the planet, but only if you make your product here in America. It all goes away if you don't make your product here, and hire American workers for the job.
Yeah. So just getting back to the port thing. I mean, I can't imagine that they would let that thing go past midnight on Sunday when they're clearly people are worried about inflation. We're in the middle of their first rate cut, whether that was the right move, whether it should have been 25. And they're going to let something that absolutely would have huge inflationary impacts. You shut down all the ports on the East Coast, down around and into Texas of stuff coming in. I mean, that would be, you want to ignite inflation again, let that go for even a couple weeks. Now, you don't need a couple months or a couple weeks, couple days. That thing would be a total disaster for them. I can't imagine they let that go past midnight, no matter what they say publicly right now. They're figuring we still got 4 days. Let's not show our hand. Can't imagine they would let that go. It would be a total disaster. So as I told you, Michael Goodwin today in the New York Post, if you want to check it out, I shared it on our social. Joe Biden's disastrous legacy of crime at home and war abroad is on full display in his final UN speech. I'm surprised it was coherent enough to even call it a speech. But as Michael Goodwin writes great stuff over at the New York Post, and he basically says that Carter is off the hook now. He says the similarities between the two go far beyond another mushy speech from another wimpy president. Biden rivals Carter as the worst American president in the modern era, maybe of all time. Both men were one-term Democrats, felled by inflation and disorder at home. On the global stage, they pursued policies that too often treated American power as a problem rather than a solution, and were rewarded with mayhem and murderous aggression. And that's exactly what's going on in the world now. See what's going on in Israel, what's going on in China. China is on the move continuously. Every enemy we have is continuously on the move. And he points out, when you put Biden in the category of absolutely the worst, he says even Carter constrained by his faith-based moral imperatives while Biden got rich selling his name to foreigners. Some of them are adversaries, which is absolutely right. So great piece today by Michael Goodwin over in the New York Post, if you want to take a look at this. I think I've already shared this on our socials. Follow-up to John Solomon's fire piece yesterday that was just absolutely infuriating is Jack Cashel today in the American Thinker. And this is basically a follow-up and further take on what John broke yesterday as far as what Representative Loudermilk has gotten to the bottom of when it comes to January 6th. And I don't believe I've actually shared this on socials yet, and I will, but this is a great read. Going back through all of the sworn testimony we've heard, all of the nonsense we've heard, to then realize that direct orders from the president were given and absolutely ignored. Just flat out ignored. And he goes through every contradictory statement, basically, and testimony to what Mark Meadows had said and how he was proven correct, to obviously what Trump said. In September 20th, 2024 press release, Loudermilk added further proof of Trump's request for support. The transcripts released from the DOD IG report show Trump gave senior Pentagon leadership directives to keep January 6th peaceful, including using the National Guard, which the Pentagon leaders ignored. Pentagon leadership prioritized concerns over optics over their duty to protect lives. And he's got direct quotes in there from Milley and others. Milley, quote, "Hey, look at this. There's going to be a large amount of protesters here on 6. Make sure that you have sufficient National Guard or soldiers to make sure it's a safe event." That's what President Trump said to him. And then he added, "Hey, I don't care if you use Guard or soldiers, active duty soldiers, do whatever you have to do. Just make sure it's safe." Acting U.S. Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller also heard Trump say, quote, "They're going to need 10,000 troops." Miller testified, "I had all authority I needed. I knew what had to happen." And I don't know if anyone else is talking about this but us. Certainly the mainstream media is not going to go back and tell you, oh, by the way, and he closes with a great point here. Great point. He talks about Pelosi on that video. We take responsibility, Terry. We didn't have accountability for what was going on there. We should have. This is ridiculous. Pelosi snaps at her chief of staff. I mean, the National Guard, why weren't the National Guard there to begin with, Pelosi says. Again, I'm sorry. I know John disagreed with me last night, which is fine. You're not going to convince me that Pelosi didn't know what the hell she was doing. As Pelosi understood, the House Speaker is responsible for the security of the Capitol. The claim that she begged Trump for help during the riot and that he turned her down is pure fiction. As Loudermilk observed, once the Capitol was breached, the Trump White House pushed for immediate help from Acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller and grew frustrated at the slow deployment of help. Meanwhile, President Trump has to go on these stages with CNN and then he has to listen to this nonsense about, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. You waited too long. You waited too... And then the facts come out 3.5 years later that, oh, no, he didn't actually. And CNN, of course, will never talk about this again. This is why you detest the media and you don't detest them enough. The Pentagon's betrayal of Trump should not surprise. The FBI and the intelligence community has sabotaged his presidency, as well as his campaign of 2016 and 2020, and maybe again here in 24. And then he reminds us all, and I hadn't thought about this. Let me tell you, Senator Chuck Schumer said to the president-elect before his 2017 inauguration, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back to you. As President Trump has now learned, the Pentagon has its ways too. And ain't that the damn truth? Ain't that the truth? All right, couple of things I wanted to just share. Oh, there's me. I didn't want to share that. New ad from the Trump campaign.
Bidenomics is working.
Bidenomics is working.
We have the strongest economy in the world.
Our economy is the strongest in the world.
My Build Back Better framework.
Our Build Back Better framework.
To a steady and stable growth.
Stable and steady growth.
We've come so far since my inauguration.
Our country has come a long way since President Biden and I took office.
Nothing says her vision like copy and paste from the boss, does it? Right? I mean, come on.
Bidenomics is working.
I mean, you really can't separate them. This is why that New York Times Siena poll I keep referring to, people saying they want real change. How does she represent herself as any change? She's not.
Now, and I do think there's a reason that in our own CNN poll today, 51% of Americans said they judged Trump's term to be a success, and only 37% have judged the Biden-Harris administration to be a success. There is something going on where people are remembering what he did, how he did it, and they're comparing it to what's happening right now. So you can cherry pick these individual statements or policies, but if you look at the comparative and you look at our own polling, you realize he's hit upon an economic vein that is working for him in this election. He beats Harris on it, and he is viewed as a better president than Biden and Harris.
50% say that Trump is better to handle the economy. Just 39% say that of Harris. There's a lot of work for her to do here.
Poor and low-wage, working-class voters. Also, I mean, the issue you're conveniently leaving out of this conversation is they've been crushed by inflation for the last 3.5 years. And I don't think it's as simple as what you laid out, Keith, about race. I think they're looking at their overall situation and saying, 4 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever, I felt like I was at least had a fighting chance. And today, after being crushed, I'm in a hole so deep I don't know how to get out. And I do think they're looking for someone to blame or to at least say, why did these policies get enacted upon me? I'm the one who's feeling it the most.
Scott, Angela, man, kudos to Scott Jennings every day, every night, dealing with that. You say one thing and you got 9 people going, bah, 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 bah. RFK Town Hall Thursday night, exclusive on Rav with our own Steve Gruber. It's going to be fantastic.
They're telling people that Donald Trump is going to end democracy. Right. But Donald Trump actually won an election. He won the primaries, 3 times.
Oh, it's very low. I can't even hear it. I don't know what's wrong with the audio on that clip. But basically, RFK said, the Democrats keep telling us how Trump's this threat to democracy. And he says, when I was in the race, all of our polling showed that I pulled from Trump. And he never once tried to get me out of the race, tried to strong arm me out of the race, tried to get me out of the race, tried to do anything to talk me out of the race, never called me, never communicated. And then you look at what the Democrats did with Biden. and we're the threat. We're the threat to democracy. We're the one who doesn't want to follow the rules. We're the one who wants to be a dictatorship. It's a simple, but it's a great point. He's like, everything told everybody that I was bad for him. And we had debated this on the show. Did he pull more from Biden? Delgado thought he pulled more from Biden. I thought he pulled more from Trump. Well, here he is admitting that everything internally showed that he pulled more from Trump. And yet Trump never called him. Trump never tried to be a dictator. Trump never had the RNC go after him. Trump never had anybody try to strong arm him out of the race. And you look at what the Democrats did with Biden. And yet they have the nerve to say that he's the threat to democracy. Have you seen this? VP Harris will join MSNBC host Stephanie Ruhle in Pittsburgh for her first one-on-one network interview since becoming the Democratic presidential nominee. Watch the full interview tonight at 7 p.m. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, Stephanie Ruhle couldn't be more in the tank. I mean, that's a joke. That's an absolute joke. And as I said here, why not just sit down with Joe Biden at this point? Sit across from him, sit across from each other. He'll think he's talking to the Pope, and she still won't have to answer any questions. That would be more exciting than watching her sit down with Stephanie Ruhle. I mean, good Lord, are you kidding me? All right, a couple of these things I wanted to get to. Mark Halperin talking about where we are, some polling.
As I said, there's also concern on the Republican side. I know there's a range of people I talk to on a regular basis and ask them, how do you think things are going? And whether they're super MAGA or simply for Trump because they're not for Harris, there's definitely more concern in the last week. And of course, that's driven by some of the public data, but it's also driven by a belief that the Trump's performance is so inconsistent. There's so many things he does that are antithetical to trying to win, either because they're unfocused or they're also off message, that they believe he may be blowing it. That the mirror image of those believe the vice president may be blowing the election, believe Trump may be blowing the election. But there's a difference, a qualitative difference. The Republicans believe if Trump can just string together a good final several weeks, he can win. The belief on the Democratic side, for those who are skeptical of the vice president on the Democratic side, they believe that she's not capable of doing what needs to be done. And they're very concerned that over time, there's going to be a failure to do what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we stand with the battleground states? I'm talking to people with private data, which is, as we always discuss here, more robust, better done than the public, almost all the public data. What's clear is, as I've said for a while, that it is unlikely that Vice President Harris can put any of the 7 states out of reach, with the possible exception of Michigan, and the Trump people dispute that will happen. All 4 of the Sun Belt states, possible that they could be put, not with huge margins, but back to the Trump camp, which is where they were pretty decisively when Joe Biden got out of the race. And if they do that, again, as we've discussed many times, at least Kamala Harris with exactly one path to the Electoral College victory of exactly 270. Now, I'm not predicting that'll happen. I'm not saying it has happened, but I did report about a month ago that that's what was expected to happen by the Trump folks, that after the initial surge by Vice President Harris when she entered the race, when she had such a successful and press-assisted start, that she'd be able to make all 7 states competitive, but that over time they thought the Sun Belt states would drift back their way. That may or may not be happening, but I will tell you again that the Democratic private polls are more in line with where the Trump private polls are than they are with the public polls. Doesn't mean they think they're behind everywhere, but it does mean that they think that there's a chance that those Sun Belt states are going to be very difficult to win. And if that's the case, then there's some worry on the Democratic side.
I mean, you're going to get a difference in every poll.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, the big polls over the weekend that got so much attention. One, an NBC News poll, the national poll. I continue to not understand national polls, but NBC News national poll showing Harris up big. And then out this morning, New York Times polls. There you see them in 3 of the 4 South Sun Belt battlegrounds, with Trump having a lead. Now, as I was told a month ago by the Trump people, they're not necessarily right, but the Times poll reflects reality, and it matches up. Some private polling suggests that what they forecast a month ago, which is that over time, once the Harris honeymoon ended, that she would fall back to where Joe Biden was before the Biden-Trump debate, which is to say behind sufficiently in the 4 Sun Belt states that are a path to victory, was winning Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Nebraska too. If the Republicans change the rules in Nebraska, that would lead her with no paths. Doesn't mean the Trump people are right. But if you do, as I do, which is talk to both sides and credit those who are making arguments as possibly right, Sean, is it possible that we're right where the Republicans said we'd be, based on the Times poll, that Donald Trump is pulling the Sun Belt states back and she's going to have a very narrow single path and maybe no path?
Yeah, I mean, look, the key thing in that poll that I think is interesting is that it's Trump's at 50 in Arizona, 49 in Georgia, 49 in North Carolina. You really want to be at 50 to start to feel a little bit of ease. Still on the margin of error in both Georgia and North Carolina, but this is exactly what they've been saying all along. And I don't think it's a stretch to think that those 3 states in particular, who have a history of voting Republican, Georgia and Arizona in particular, come back home, right? They were anomalies, extremely close last cycle. So that's not, the North Carolina, I think, will continue to be close. But the bottom line is, if you take those 3 states, which I do think Trump will, all you need is 1 in that blue wall. So Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania, I'm particularly bullish on Pennsylvania. But the bottom line is, that's if he picks off 1 more state, he wins. And that's the key thing, the Trump victory. And it's not just, he can go Wisconsin, he can go any of the 3. And that puts him back in the White House. She needs to get everything. And that's the difference when it comes to the Electoral College, is that it's a much better road for him than it is for her right now.
Well, I don't agree with that it's a much better road, or it's certainly not an easier road. But the point being, you see how important North Carolina is. You see how important North Carolina is. And as I've talked, the thing that concerns me about Arizona, and Spicer says correctly that he's bullish on Pennsylvania. So is John Fetterman for Trump, by the way. So are a lot of people. And if you look at Trump polling in Pennsylvania, and you look how well he's doing, and you look at David McCormick, who's running in Pennsylvania on Trump's coattails, pulling him, he's right there. It's tied or a point down. He's right there, knocking on the door. When you look at Trump in Arizona, and you look at Carrie Lake, she's getting bombed. 7, 8 points down, 10 points down. I've seen as much as. I didn't check it this morning to see where she's at. But why the difference? I've been asking this now for weeks. I don't know what the difference is. Now the North Carolina debacle is another problem. So, yes, if he wins 1, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, if he takes Arizona, well, okay, but where are we in Arizona? Why is he really doing as well as he is in Arizona, and Carrie Lake's really that unpopular? Why would his coattails be different there than they are in Pennsylvania, where David McCormick is riding him and he's right there knocking on the doorstep? Mark Robinson, before this whole thing went down, was down big, made a resurgence, made the race very competitive. Obviously has a Trump endorsement there as well. So I don't know. Obviously, if he was to win all three of those, as Spicer correctly points out, then all he's got, and then if he pulls Pennsylvania, there you go. But it's the down ballot things that make me nervous about places like Arizona. What the hell's really going on there? And Charlie Kirk's story yesterday about what's going on, I guess it was, I think I said Wisconsin before I was wrong, in Nebraska, where Nebraska has decided that they're not going to do winner take all. Ron says it's all attack ads in Arizona. Attack ads is why Kari Lake's down 7 or 8 points. I mean, doesn't she have money to spend too? Let's see if I can go find. Let's go to. Let's see where we are. I mean, it's not good. It's not good. New York Times Siena has Gallego up 6. The Hill Emerson has Gallego up 6. Trafalgar, Gallego up 4. Insider Advantage, Gallego up 4. CNN, Gallego up 3. Why? And it's been the whole way. I mean, the closest they got, 44-47, 41-44, 3 points or so. I mean, they've kind of moved. And now they're starting to separate. Look at this. I mean, it was kind of like they were together here, and then August 14th, boom, separation. Boom, separation again. Boom, separation again. Boom, separation again. I mean, she went from down 2 to down 8 by the 1st of September. She brought it back a little bit here, middle of September. But I mean, here's every poll, every single one. Look over here. Find me a red one. There's some that have him plus 13, 10, 10, 13, 10, 13, 15. Fox News has him up 15. Real Clear Politics average 4.6. Now, in turn, let's go to Pennsylvania. McCormick Casey right now. Tie. Casey plus 5. Casey plus 5, plus 5, plus 5. So these are not great either. Honestly, I haven't looked at these in a while. McCormick was at one point, I believe, right there, like -1. Yeah, -2 right here, -2. Yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania's not as good shape as I thought in this McCormick race. I haven't looked at it in a while. It's not nearly as close as I thought it was. I actually thought you had some red up here. I thought you'd have some McCormick or at least some. Okay, you got 3 ties. CNN has it tied. Washington Post has it tied. Rasmussen has it tied. So, tad better than what Kari Lake's doing, but not great. Not great at all. I'm actually surprised by that. Currently, Arizona on the top of the ticket. Trump plus 2, 2.2. New York Times Siena has him up 5. Hill Emerson has him up 1. Trafalgar has him up 1. American Greatness, TIPP has it tied. Insider Advantage +1, Trump +5. If you go down to all polls, there's only 3 that have her with a lead. Fox News +1, Cook Political Report +2, Bloomberg Harris +2. That's in Arizona. In Georgia, average Trump 2.1. Hill Emerson actually has Harris +1 in Georgia, which is actually surprising because Emerson was one of the more accurate ones. Bloomberg Harris +2, Fox News Harris +2, Triple P, I don't know who that is, Harris +1. Bunch of ties. That's in Georgia. Michigan, Trump's on the board with 1. Insider Advantage has Trump +1, but the average is Harris 1.8. So that's not a runaway in Michigan, with Ava Perone up there doing everything she can, of course. So you have a little red on the board here. Insider Advantage has Trump up. Epic MRA has Trump up. I don't know who that is. Hill Emerson has Trump up. Triple P has Trump up, and then you've got a bunch of 4 ties. So certainly in play. Nevada, slight edge to Harris, but I mean basically a dead heat. Not even 1 percentage point. As you can see, Insider Advantage has Trump +10. I mean, that's not even close to anybody else. 50-40. New Hampshire, Harris +7. North Carolina. North Carolina has definitely tightened. Trump now up only 0.5 percentage point on the average. There you go. That's probably as evenly split as any state we've looked at with blue and red. Almost a dead heat. Emerson has Trump +1 at this point. Rasmussen, are they on here? They're not on here. Are they on here? No, they're not. Minnesota, Harris +5.3. Pennsylvania. Real Clear Politics right now has Pennsylvania in Harris's camp. I mean, it's only 0.6, under 1 percentage point. Again, a lot of ties. I mean, this thing is going to be... I know there's some people on the network who think this thing he's way out. I mean, maybe we get a 2016, repetitive, big move. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that a candidate in this election can be out there +10 points, way ahead than what any poll is telling us as we look at some of these. Virginia, a lot of people are saying Virginia's in play. A lot of people talking about early ballots in Virginia. Well, this has Harris up 4.5 in Virginia. And then Wisconsin, Harris +1 right now. What's the top Senate race in Scott? Okay, Scott up in Florida and Maryland. Also Brooks over Larry Hogan. That's basically 2 Democrats, so I don't know what the 2 Democrats running against each other. Rogers and Slotkin +4.5 in Montana. Tester knows he's going down in Montana by the way he's acting. Nevada, the Democrat, Rosen's up +8. New Mexico, Heinrich +9.5. Ohio, Sherrod Brown still holds 3.6 percentage point lead over Bernie Moreno. Pennsylvania, I'm actually surprised. I hadn't looked at this in a while. I thought McCormick was actually tighter than that. Cruz +5 in Texas, should be +15. Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin +4.6. So there you go. All right, folks. As Sean Davis in the Federalist said, polls don't matter. The only thing that matters is the ballots. I wanted to talk a little bit about this, but we didn't really have time with the FCC and what this could possibly mean. But maybe we'll get to that tonight on Live from Studio 6B, 8 o'clock. I'll just quickly take a look at your comments here. Anything I missed? Hello, Kevin Connell on Facebook. Welcome on in. Okay. Damon says, in Michigan, anything above I-96 is Trump country. The I-94 corridor is basically Harris. Our Secretary of State has rigged our elections for the last two presidential elections. I have no faith. What about New York, Damon? Well, you know my feelings on New York. Well, listen, we had Jesse Garcia on last night. Jesse Garcia is as tuned into New York as anybody in the state. He doesn't think Delgado's out of his bird like I do for thinking New York's in play. But, I mean, Jesse's best case scenario right now is Trump's down 10. Can you make up, even if you were to take that, which I don't think it is, I think it's probably double that. But even if you take 10, can you make up 10 in 30 days in New York? I mean, if turnout in Suffolk County and some of these other places that are going to be heavily Trump counties, you know, Trump country, if the turnout is astronomical to offset 8 million votes in New York City, I mean, listen, in today's day and age, you can't rule anything out. I'm just playing the statistics, and the statistics tell me New York is never ever going to be in play. And to spend time and resources here is just a waste of time and resources that you could be spending in Pennsylvania, where it looks like all the numbers say the race is close. All these places. Again, nothing would excite me more on November 6th to come on the show and say, man, was I wrong about everything? They were right about New York. Brian Glenn was right about him being way farther up than any of us think. Nothing would make me happier than to come on the show on November 6th and say all of that. But I just don't think that's the case. And it's unfortunate because it should be the case, given the way the country's gone in 3.5 years. Given the way Jewish Americans should vote this year, and given what this administration has done there. Given the way African Americans should vote this year, given what this administration has done for 3.5 years. For that voting bloc, nothing. The Jewish voting bloc, nothing. Disdain for you. Working with the enemy against you. But unfortunately, the country is where it is, and I just don't think those numbers are achievable. I just don't. I think the road to 270 for the Republican is much harder than people make it out to be. Although I do agree with Sean Spicer, if he wins, the 3, then all he's got to do is pick off, Pennsylvania, which looks like is his best shot. But that's no easy task. And North Carolina has to work itself out. North Carolina could be a nail biter, and we don't want it to be. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for spending some time with me this morning. I think President, let me do a quick check because I might be streaming again today, like I did yesterday. President Trump. Wednesday, well, speaking of, President Trump is in North Carolina, Mint Hill, North Carolina today at 1 o'clock. So I will be streaming back at 1 o'clock. I'll have the president's speech, and I'll be here with you. So if you make sure you hit the like and subscribe, and make sure if you're on YouTube, you hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I go live. I'll try to go live right around when the president's going to take the stage in Mint Hill, North Carolina today for a speech. And it'll be very interesting to see what he says. I'm assuming he will not address anything that's going on there. I'm sure he'll come out and just do his deal. But this is a very important speech, and North Carolina is a very important state. And I hope Mark Robinson, whatever the situation is, I mean, it's too late, I think, at this point to get out. But if he's making any moves in his own defense, I hope he does them quickly, and I hope he makes them very public, because we need North Carolina to be in the camp of Donald J. Trump. So I'll be back. See you at 1 o'clock if you're watching. Make sure you hit the notifications so you get alerted when I go live. I'll be back with the president's speech at 1. And if those of you who can't make that, again, I'll see you tonight at 8 on Live from Studio 6B. Kevin Downey Jr. will be in again with us tonight. Vinnie Mac will be back on Friday. Looks like Thursday we're going to be off, but I'll probably be with you on socials. Because RFK is doing a town hall with Steve Gruber on Real America's Voice from 8 to 10, our slot. So we will be off on Thursday. But I may do some streaming from here at the home studio, 8 to 10 on Thursday night, and we can talk about what's going on. Maybe we'll watch a little of the RFK, and we'll see what's going on there. Of course, all of these streams, and of course, Live from Studio 6B is brought to you by MyPillow, mypillow.com/LFS6B. If you're going to shop for the holidays, we would appreciate it if you use promo code LFS6B at checkout at MyPillow. Great stuff from Mike Lindell. It gives you a great savings, sometimes upwards of 50, 60% off some of the great stuff that Lindell has, whether it's pillows, sheets, bed covers, actual mattresses themselves. People who have got the mattresses there say it's the best mattress they've ever slept on. So if you're in the market for any of that, LFS6B is the code to use, and we will reward you for using it. If you send us your confirmation email showing that you used our code, send it into lfs6b@yahoo.com. You can pick out any shirt on livefromstudio6b.com, shirt of the month, whichever one you want. If you do have a specific request, we most likely will fill it. If you want something other than the shirt of the month, we'll send it to you absolutely free. All right, guys, thanks for all your support. Thanks for joining me in the mornings here. Thanks for joining us at night. We appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you. We do it because of you. And I will see you at 1 with the president, and then I'll see you tonight, 8 p.m. on Real America's Voice. All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good couple hours. I'll see you at 1.